G'day and welcome back to Critical AFL on YouTube. Today we'll be covering a much more impressive performance from last week, with the Young Eagles outfit coming very close to toppling the reigning premiers on their home deck. But before we get going, I have got a request that I'm putting at the front of my videos just now, and that is for anybody who currently isn't subscribed and is enjoying these videos to please hit the subscribe button on YouTube. The reason for this is because at this stage, the channel is still a little while away from being monetized, and it's more just a very time-consuming hobby and passion that I'm doing. But hopefully by putting these messages at the start of these videos, it'll help act as a good reminder to anybody who's been enjoying the content to hit that subscribe button and help make it easier to keep putting these videos out. But anyway, that's all from that. Let's get into it. Today's match was characterised by a far better contest from West Coast in the midfield, led by superstar recruit Liam Baker, along with a far more impressive team performance across the entire squad, including some really promising efforts from our younger players. To be perfectly honest, with the exception of a fair few guys out on their feet right at the end in red time, it was actually a game that West Coast had every right to win. And if it hadn't been for a series of nail-thin misses in the third quarter and some questionable decisions from the umpires, it probably could have gone our way. All I will say is that I will very rarely comment on umpiring in matches for a number of reasons, or a couple of reasons. One, people tend to take you less seriously if you bring up the umpiring, especially more than once. And two, it's not really what I'm interested in making content on with this channel anyways. But that said, I'm going to say it this one time, the umpiring was dog shit. And I'm just glad that it happened against the side I was happy to lose to. I don't mind Brisbane too much, as opposed to... So, getting into the best players for us. For the second week in a row, I'm going to put Liam Baker at the top of that list. I think a lot of fans were wondering through the week if he would swing through the midfield, just to balance the competitiveness in there after the way we got really run over by Gold Coast. And that's exactly what he did do, and that's exactly what ended up happening. Baker's attack on the contest shifted the needle immediately and was a huge factor in West Coast blowing Brisbane away early in the first quarter, running away with the first 5 goals of the game, a lot of it off his intensity from the coalface. His contribution didn't really drop at all throughout the day either, and he ended up with 23 disposals and a massive 7 tackles, only showing signs of fatigue in that final quarter, just with a couple of tired kicks inside 50, but the intensity and the attack on the ball never dropped. My next best player on the ground is my favourite youngster from this summer, and that's Tyrell Dewar. Like Baker, he had a huge hand in the early jump we got on the Lions. In fact, he kicked 2 of the first 5 goals personally, also racking up 8 disposals in that first quarter. A lot of them were very highly effective runs off the wing, which is where he needs to permanently be from now on. Also, a side note to all my Dewar predictions, don't be surprised if he signs a 2-year contract extension in the next fortnight. And remember, if he does, you heard it here first. No, that's not a rumour, that's a prediction. But I'd be very surprised if he doesn't. Another of our best was Tim Kelly. After a very rough round 1, he really bounced back today, racking up 26 disposals and keeping himself heavily amongst the play every single quarter. It wasn't a dominant game, but I thought it was a really good response for a quiet game last week. And like a lot of the things I say about the senior players, I'm not really going to bang too hard on the known quantities, which is what Tim is, other than to say he's back and he's really playing the role that he needs to be playing, especially with Elliot Yeo out of the side. Other guys in our best included Liam Ryan, who just walked straight back into the side from injury and was immediately dominated with 3 goals, and he opened the field up with almost every one of his 15 possessions. Ryan Marrick had close to his best game for the club with 24 disposals. And for a reasonably new and young AFL player, he has so much composure in the back line, especially that disposal by foot. I think we're really going to end up relying on him long-term back there, and it's a great move. The list of solid contributors is pretty long, but I'm just going to go and focus on the younger guys who really impressed me from here, because most of what I look for at this stage of our rebuild is who will be carrying the side in the next few years. So on that note, the first one I'm going to mention is Clay Hall. I'm not going to lie, considering how much I've talked Jack Graham up over the preseason, I have to admit I was actually excited to hear Hall would be stepping in at the last minute at the expense of Graham being a late out. So hopefully it's just a 1 weeker for Graham. We really don't actually know. It was supposed to be a hip they mentioned, but no one really knows how serious it was. But Graham's vital to the side, so hopefully it's not a long-term injury. But in the meantime, Hall, I thought, did a really good job of filling that void. He had quiet periods, but still found a decent amount of the footy with 13 disposals, including 7 coming in the second quarter, which he started with a great goal. And that's an important one because I think sometimes you see a guy's ceiling when you can see what they can do across one quarter. And for a 19-year-old, he can really expand on that. I'm hoping in future games that he keeps getting. I hope they don't just drop him straight out of the side from there. The next one is Elijah Hewitt, who showed a lot of promising signs again. He had 13 disposals also, but had a handful of really powerful possessions. And in a game of inches, some of those could have been goals as well. He didn't actually get any, but he could have had a couple, just looking at how close some of them came. And the last note I'll make is that Harry Edwards looked a lot better after a nightmare matchup against Ben King last week. His stats won't show it, but that's the nature of playing fullback. And I thought he gave more than he got in all of his one-on-one matchups throughout the day. And he took a couple of really good intercept marks as well at crucial moments too. So again, I could probably rattle off another 10 players who made a good contribution today. But those were all the notable mentions for me before just making my key takeaways for the match. The first of which I'll say is I thought the side today showed that we're capable of at least matching it against any side in the competition from now on. I don't want to say that the days of being belted are over because with a young side, I'm sure there will be a couple more howlers this year. But to put it in context, I think the days of West Coast being a percentage booster for the comp is definitely over. The second takeaway is we show that we're a side that's able to review and rectify from our failures and that we have a list that's also capable of delivering that improvement week to week as well, which I think comes down to a mixture of having a better injury list, as well as a stronger overall list with some really good new recruits. I think all 3 recruits that we brought in from the off-season have been great. And as that's, by the way, Jack Graham, Liam Baker and Matt Owies. Graham not playing today. But also some of our high-end youngsters are beginning to make their mark too. Guys that I mentioned today, but even Jinby week to week, he's a reliable staple in the side that's gone up a gear. So yeah, that wraps up what I think is a far more positive review compared to last week's without any need for sugarcoating. And hopefully it's just the momentum that we needed to generate going into the Derby next week, which is when I'll see you next. So until then,